Hi, welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. And if you hear some thunder right now, we are attempting to get a thunderstorm going on, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to pan out too much. I'll show you what's going on. We basically have thunder going on. You can see there's blue sky on both sides, and we have this strip of cloud that is thundering like crazy, and then it goes into more clouds over this way. So it's actually getting pretty dark over in here, and you see all the way to the horizon it's pretty dark, but the storms actually come from this direction, this way, and there isn't anything over there very much at all. It is trying to rain. I feel some raindrops. So just out of that little strip of cloud, but I think we'll be okay for now. I just got done watering, so if it rains again, that's fine. But anyway, we're out here. I believe it is August 8th or 9th, and I've got a dental appointment on Wednesday, so that's why I kind of know what the date is, because I don't check the date every day, and it's not a whole lot that I have scheduled every day other than mostly gardening. So anyway, as you can see, we have tasseled on the corn all the way nearly to the back. We've only got about maybe 18 inches left here that hasn't tasseled yet, but it is in the process of putting a tassel up. Each one of these has a tassel. This one right here, unfortunately, has gotten taken over by beans, so I don't think it's going to tassel or do anything. But for the most part, we have corn. At least we have ears. They just have to get thoroughly pollinated on every silk in order for them to be full of kernels. And unfortunately, it looks like we had one that may have gotten broken into by an animal or something. And I can see that there's corn in there, but it's not quite ready yet. But anyway, we do have ears. You can see the other ears here that are fine. Haven't seen anything else get into them. We do have raccoons around here, so I do worry about that. But so far I haven't seen them get into the corn. You can see all of our ears there, double ears on that one and double ears on that one. Some of them are quite large. We do have some pretty big ears of corn back in there specifically, because this gets more of the sun first. So anyway, pretty tall right now. It's almost probably 5 feet tall or so, some of it a little bit bigger. Anyway, really beautiful corn, lots of corn, and getting tomatoes set on the Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes, at least 2 of them. The other one that's small, still staying small, and I think it just does not have enough soil around the base, because I've seen some roots poking out. And I've tried putting soil on it, but it just keeps washing it away, either in rainstorms or when I'm watering. So we'll have tomatoes at least on 2 of the Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes. Our lemon cucumber is just running like crazy, and our Gito squash is blooming, and it does have little squash on it, so I'm not sure how much it will do, but it's trying to do something. It is starting to rain a little bit, and we can see that storm again. The clouds are hanging pretty low. You can see there. So, but it's still mostly blue over here. But anyway, we still don't have a whole lot of the Kennebec potatoes dying back as yet. We've gotten some nice radishes. We've got some radishes hidden down in there underneath some of the potatoes and stuff like that. You can see a bit of them sticking out. We have gotten some pretty nice radishes out of there, some nice big radishes, some watermelon radishes, and then we have some, I think it's called lady slipper radishes, and we have some crimson in there. But anyway, potatoes not dying back very much to be harvested as yet, but they will be, I'm sure. They've really only been in, if you think about these Kennebec potatoes, they started coming up around June 2nd. So they haven't been in a huge amount of time, and it does take, I think, around 100 days to 120 days for Kennebec potatoes to be done. So we could look until the beginning of September before we're looking into harvesting any of these. Some of them are dying back. They're getting some brownness on them, a little bit more yellowing on them. So you can see some of that there. but not all of them are. And a couple of them even still have blooms on them, especially the ones in the back that were shaded quite a bit. We've got some blooms on those. So they haven't quite bloomed yet, but most of these, I would think probably 90% of them have bloomed. But you can see some of them do still have blooms on them, or maybe even seed pods. Those look like blooms to me. So not all of them have bloomed completely, but I know we've got potatoes in there. It's just a matter of them dying back enough to get harvested. Our tomatillos that came up over here by volunteer, we've got 2 of them, have started to make tomatillos on them. They're still really, really small and they're still blooming like crazy. And then we've got our eggplants in here making eggplants. Right now we've got a lot of blooms on them. One of them is actually pretty tall. And we've got an eggplant in here hiding down underneath some foliage. And these are the Black Beauty eggplants, so they're really super huge. So you basically got to wait all the way up until the end of the season before we harvest any of these. We're lucky to have any at all because this climate's not conducive to actually having eggplants, really. Our zinnias are blooming like crazy, except I only have like mostly pinks and some reds and only 1 yellow so far. So we've got some of them blooming. Others are still waiting to bloom. We had to remove a couple of peppers out of here, and one of the tomatillos got destroyed in a windstorm. There it is. And unfortunately we had to take it out as well. So we've only got 1 left in the main garden area, but I think we will have enough pollination. You can see that the other 2 are pretty close. So I think we'll have enough pollination between all those for there to set quite a lot of fruit on that one. And then we've got a couple of giant tomatillos that are coming on. I'll show you those in a moment. I picked about a half gallon of beans today, and we probably have another half gallon or so sitting on the vines right now, and the vines still are not huge. I mean, some of the pole beans have not reached completely to the top of the trellis yet, but they are beginning to and starting to fill out. And we've got some of our rattlesnake pole beans that have been producing, and I've been getting some off of those. It's actually been quite a lot of them, in fact. You can see that down in there. They're just hanging like crazy. And I picked a lot of them today, but I keep seeing ones that I missed. I think, honestly, those rattlesnake ones are a little bit more camouflage than the others. And it looks like the tail end of that system is about to pass. You can see right there. But it looks pretty nasty over that direction, so hopefully we don't get a tornado or something, because you can have tornadoes in Wyoming. But anyway, the garden is looking fantastic now that it's just gone wild. I do not try to get in the garden very much at all, except for harvesting, because it is just so wild right now, so close together with everything. We have to because of the space. So I mostly stay out of it. But anyway, we've got lots of nice onions coming on. I was waiting to see if they actually got big, and they are. And I've done little updates on them. But it's a little bit brighter out here right now, so you can see the onions a lot better. So you can see some of them are quite nice. Getting pretty big in there. And I just really wanted medium-sized onions. And most of them are like that, with only a few that are still pretty small. But they're coming on pretty quickly. We still have a lot of grow time left. And onions can handle a little bit of a frost, so even if they still have to grow into that, they're fine. Onions are ready to harvest when they start to bend over. I've got one that's probably already ready to harvest, and it might have been because of wind. But when they bend over like that, and you got about 1.5 inches to 2 inches where the bend is, that onion is done. It's not going to get any larger. It'll just get a thicker skin on it. And that onion is pretty much done. But all of the others in here are not like that, so they've got plenty of grow time still available to them. And we'll let them do that. So Anyway, I'm not sure if we're going to get an Armenian cucumber. We're going to have temperatures into the 90s for the next week and a half before they go down into the 70s. But they basically go back from the 70s to the 80s, but the night temperatures are supposed to stay around 60. So I think we will possibly still get an Armenian cucumber out of this guy. The Armenian is back here, right there in the frame, and it is blooming, and we just need to get an Armenian on there. I haven't had one since I moved here, so I'm looking forward to it if they do. They're more of a melon rather than a cucumber. So sometimes they take more heat than even cucumbers do. Our tomatoes are setting tomatoes like crazy. We've got the old German in here, Super Sauce, Giant Ox Heart, and the San Marzanos. The San Marzano is the short guys. We had a lot of issues with blight with these guys, and not so much with the other ones, even though it did affect a couple of the plants. So anyway, but most of these are still healthy. Got a lot of growth on them in the last several days. And we have tomatoes hanging in here all over the place at this point. So we will get some tomatoes, probably not as big a harvest as I normally get, even though I worry. But hopefully we'll get something. And we have red curry squash. Our peas are just about done. We still have some peas to harvest, but they won't be putting on many more at this point. And I'm not going to plant any more. I'll just wait till next season to plant more peas. But we do still have some to harvest. They'll still produce a little bit more, but not anything like they were doing. And then we have the red curry climbing up into them, so they're basically taking over the trellises, even though I really don't trellis my squash. If they get over to a trellis and go up it, I don't try to detach it, because at that point it's already got its tendrils wrapped around and I don't want to damage the plant. So it has gotten up in there. There's a red curry up in there hanging, and it's blooming right now, and I think it got pollinated, so it'll continue to grow. We've got several more down in here that have mixed into our yellow straight neck squash. You can see one right there. And then we have another one down in here. See right there. And then several more throughout the vines that is very difficult to see. We've got one on the end of the vine all the way out there now. But they just basically took over the garden. And I was afraid they would do that. But I really wanted to have a lot of red curry squash so that I could store them for the winter. So I'm kind of glad that they did. But we still have yellow straight neck squash that are coming out of here, out of the remaining plants that we have. And then the two plants that I said would take over the place of the two we lost are doing that. You can see they are now blooming. So they will continue to get bigger. This one over here is starting to bloom, and it will take over for the place of the two that we lost that broke off. And our peppers, we have so many peppers through here. It's crazy right now. We've got them hanging in just basically gobs all over the place. You can see the peppers just hanging everywhere, and they will continue to just get bigger. We've got some really huge ones in here already. If I can show you one in there, you can see how big that guy is if it stops focusing on the leaf. And we've got another one just as big shortly beyond that. And then you saw one hanging in there as well that's pretty good sized. And then just all throughout here, and again we ended up with like I think there was 24 pepper plants, and the ones that were my seed here are getting taken over by the squash, but they are still blooming and they are still trying to produce something. So hopefully they will get a chance to, even despite being shaded out quite a bit. Some of them have actually risen above the squash, so they might actually still produce. It's getting later in the evening. I hate to keep doing these where it gets dark, but unfortunately that does happen. About the time that I had for today, I had a lot of errands to run. Our celery is huge. Now you can see our celery all throughout here. This is the zucchini squash. We've got zucchinis everywhere in here. Down there, zucchini. There's another zucchini in the next plant, and the next, and the next, and the next. So we have so many zucchinis in here. We've already harvested a bunch. And celery. Celery is pretty much full grown at this point. I'm going to let it continue to be in the garden until the very end, because we've just been harvesting stalks, eating them, and then just keeping the plants in here, and they keep putting on stalks. So to Charles Dowding, who gave me the motivation to have celery out here and actually attempt it, because I've heard a lot of people can't grow celery because of pests or weather, or that it's really hard to grow. Well, I have found it to be extremely easy to grow for some reason. I haven't had to do anything with the celery. I just basically planted it, and it took off, and it sat for a long time being small, but then it just took off, and I've not had any issues with it whatsoever. Even the one that was pretty much small and to begin with has really started picking up in growth, and I think it's because it actually got shaded a little bit. But all of this celery is beautiful. The stalks are big, just as big as in the store, and we have been enjoying it. We've got 15 heads of it. If we harvested it today, we would have 15 heads of celery, but we're going to leave it until the very end. It has stayed tender. We haven't had any issues with it being fibrous. The flavor is so much better than in the store. And again, this is the Tango variety of celery, so cannot say enough. It is the best, and I have not had to put it in a whole bunch of compost. It's basically in soil with a little bit of compost, and that's it. So grow the Tango celery if you have room for it, because it is so good. All of our flowers are blooming now. We've got bachelor's buttons over here, which are basically cornflowers, and you can see they are blooming. And I had pinks and purples and stuff like that, so I'm hoping we get a lot of color with those. And we've got our zinnias blooming like crazy over here, the ones with the smaller heads. They're still just as pretty. And we do have some reds in there, fuchsia and light pinks. And then all of our calendula blooming like crazy. And we've got some really unique flowers on these calendula, and our cosmos are getting ready to bloom right now too. And then some of them have went to seed, and we've been collecting the seed off of those. I collected 2 today, but some of the flowers are just so gorgeous. But all kinds of different ones. Some of them have a little centerpiece and some don't. Some are deep orange, some yellow, and I've got some peach ones. And I wish you could have seen these. These close up at the end of the day, but when they opened up, they had a little center too. So pretty. And then our zinnias over here are getting ready to bloom. Our collards are to the point that we could harvest some of those. They're all throughout there, kind of underneath the red curry, but they're still growing. You can see how nice they are down in there. And there's another red curry hanging outside the fence. And this guy, let me show you how long this red curry is. You can see it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes along the fence, and then goes back into the garden. And this is one of the ones that is more in the back rather than in the front. But you can see how long the runner is on that one. And I just keep wrapping it amongst the fence so that way he does not run over it with the lawnmower. And we are getting heads on our broccoli now. I just noticed that they had just started. So we've got some heads on the broccoli. Our cabbages keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger by the day. These are the fairy round Dutch here, the green ones. And they're not very big heads. They'll only get about 5 or 6 pounds. One of them is about 3 to 4 pounds now. And then we've got our red cabbage here that is forming a head. It's been slower than the other, but it's catching up really quickly. Now that I've gotten the potatoes out of the way, which were kind of shading them out, they have really started to pick up and grow like crazy. And some of our fall cabbages are really growing like crazy as well. Doesn't look like a huge amount of growth, but it is. And some of the ones that struggled in the beginning of the season are now picking up and growing too. So it's kind of crazy. Some of those are actually picking up and starting to head up. But we got nice heads on most of the cabbage through there. Carrots are just growing like crazy as well that I've gotten the potatoes out of the way. Potatoes didn't get a huge harvest on them, but got more than what I planted, so that was good. Our cabbages are coming up that we planted for fall in here by direct seed. I don't think they'll have enough time to do anything, but it's nice to see something growing in the space. So you can see some cabbages there. We basically have them in a row. And our beans are coming up. We have contender beans in here as well, and you can see those are coming up. And those are only 40 days, so we will actually get a harvest off of those before they are done for the season. And we've got carrots through here and parsnips. They are not up as yet, but they will continue to grow throughout the winter, even if they're still small when they do come up, which is fine. And the radishes we planted through here, and I actually didn't, for some reason, didn't plant through here, and I need to go ahead and fill in that space with some more radishes, and maybe just a few more behind it. So I thought I was trying to give space to the carrots, but really didn't need to. And our lettuce behind everything is absolutely gorgeous, especially the romaine lettuce. You can see those nice heads of romaine lettuce there and there. We've got some blooms on a sunflower here. These came out of the bird seed that we have. And just look at that gorgeous lettuce. And we got some more planted, and it did all come up. That it struggled all summer to come up, but it has finally came up like crazy in here. So we've got that, and you can tell the pans are working great. They're keeping all the birds out of the garden. Our turnips look amazing, and they're starting to form up heads. And our dinosaur kale is really starting to get a size on now. It's just growing by leaps and bounds every day at this point. It stayed small for so long, but now it's finally just taking off. And the beets, we've got some nice beets in here. I've actually checked them, and they're about ping pong ball sized right now, but growing very quickly now. So looking forward to lots of good beets. We've got the gold, the colorful beets, and the Jupiter beets in here. And we do have some pumpkins, and it's again getting dark on us again, but we do have a pumpkin in here and another pumpkin over here, and we've got some white acorn squash over here, and we have, I think, a Boston marrow squash right there. So they're setting fruit like crazy. They grow super fast, so that is going to be awesome. All of our flowers still doing amazing, and all of our radishes came up that we planted here a few days ago. All of those are up. I just watered, so they're kind of laying over right now. And our acorn squash is blooming. That is along the fence here. We've got 5 plants here, and it's starting to bloom. They're still kind of small, but I don't expect them to do a whole lot in the shade. If they have 1 acorn squash each, that is 5 more acorn squash than we had. Our Swiss chard is looking pretty fabulous at this point. Getting bigger like crazy and so colorful. And our rhubarb is still going strong. Got lots of stalks of rhubarb in here. And I've been having people come and ask me if they can have some rhubarb. Of course you can. There's plenty of it. We've used all that we need. And here's a little bit of a surprise I wanted to show everyone, is that we have some snapdragons in here. Let me see if I can get over to them. We basically have to cross the fence to get in there. And I'll show you the snapdragons that finally bloomed. And here they are. And such a pretty color of snapdragons. I got more blooms all the way up to nearly the top. But they are so pretty, and are celosia, very pretty, and petunias, all very pretty in here. And then we have some of the tangerine orange colored pansies in here, and violas. So pretty. And we've got more over here. And that's the look at the acorn squash again. And then over here on the north side, We'll get to the containers here in a moment. Our Guido Cossaman squash over here is blooming, and so is this French pie pumpkin, which I actually think is now is a cucumber. It does not have the same leaf pattern. So is this one. So I must have replaced those that didn't come up with cucumbers, and I just don't remember. Acorn squash coming up here, or sorry, blooming here and here as well. And then our Big Max pumpkins, and this is over on the north part, are starting to bloom and are starting to produce. And so is that one. And then we still have all of our runners for our strawberries. We're still getting strawberries, guys. And we're in August. Look at that. We have strawberries on the other one as well. I planted some dill back here, and it's going strong. And I planted another cucumber over here, and this one is blooming and getting ready to produce. And then we've got another acorn squash over here, which was a little bit behind the others, but it's almost getting to the point of blooming. And then our rhododendron is taking off like crazy as well. And these are all of our sunflowers along the fence here, and they are just doing amazing. We've got some more zinnias there that are getting ready to bloom, and we've got a couple of marigolds that I planted later in the season, so they're not super huge yet, but I expect they will bloom before too late. And then we have some more zinnias here, and I need to tie this sunflower up. For some reason it's just a weak one, but the rest of the sunflowers are getting ready to bloom. They've got heads on them, looking beautiful, and all of our dark opal basil has came up in our container here. And then we have our containers here for the comfrey, which is blooming right now. So this plant has really taken off. And our compact basil is starting to get a lot bigger now. And our roses are looking fantastic. Our fuchsia is looking fantastic, bushing out like crazy. Seeding up on the basil in this container with the fuchsia, and that was the one that overwintered from last season. And then we have oregano here that's just filling out the entire container. I did cut one off and give to someone that needed some oregano. And we are now getting squash on our delicata squash. You can see a little tiny guy right there, and it's starting to get some runners on it, like longer runners. And I think we ended up with two different varieties of delicata squash. We have the bush variety, and then we have a vining variety, and that can be an either or on delicata squash. They are an either or kind of plant, so I hope to get some out of that. And we have sunflowers over here as well. They are not quite up to having flowers yet, but we also have beans back here that are running up the fence and blooming, so I'm assuming we're gonna get some beans off of those guys. And everything just looking fantastic that is in containers, as well as our rose section over here and all of our flowers over there. And now we'll go see the main containers. Our orange mint is still looking fantastic. This is over here in the main containers now. And all of our hibiscus, we're still pulling flowers from those like crazy and drying them, sometimes 5 to 10 a day. So they're still blooming like crazy, really bushing out now. And all of our lettuces are starting to get a lot bigger. And our cucumbers in the base of the hibiscus, these are the burpee picklers, are starting to get some blooms on them now and starting to really take off and run. Our lettuce over here, I've harvested a little bit from this one. It's pretty much ready to go. So we've been basically a cut and come again kind of type lettuce is what we've been doing here. And this is just basically a gourmet blend. So it's all different types of lettuces. And I pulled the Sun Gold cherry tomato out here in the front so I could get some more light, and it really has started bushing out a lot more when I did that. So I should have done that to begin with. We do have a lot of tomatoes in there hanging on it, and even one that is starting to get ripe. So looking beautiful. My dahlia that I saved in clearance section is blooming now. It's just looking fantastic, and we'll save the root, take it inside all of that. And this is the super huge tomato from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming / Arizona, Sandy. And it is just growing amazingly. I am just shocked at how much growth it has done. So maybe we will get something out of it. And our yellow pear tomato is so huge, so full of tomatoes, and they are not even most of them ripe yet. And again, we have cucumbers like crazy, white spine cucumbers that are popping up everywhere. And so far, I'm really loving these guys. You can see we're just getting new ones all the time. Got a big one over there. There's cucumbers all over this plant. Actually, 3 plants. 3 plants are cucumbers, 3 plants are white Crenshaws, and 3 plants are Sharon Tay cantaloupes. I haven't seen any cantaloupes or Crenshaws yet. Unfortunately, I've seen some little bitty starts of some, but not anything that I could write home to Mom about. So we've got mostly cucumbers going on in there, which is fine. We still have cantaloupes on other plants. Tomatoes still doing great in here. And I think we're going to end up going into a part 2 of this garden update for August. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out. This is Debbie with Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener, and we'll see you in the part 2.